All right, well, two Red Deer podcast superpowers combined here as we're joined by Patrick Bateman and Peter Michaels of The Road the Stage, which is the flagship podcast of Communal Creative Studios. Really the reason that this whole studio was built. So guys, thanks for being here and thanks for letting us use your space when you're not all the time.
If we're superpowers, let's change it to mega powers. Who's Hulk Hogan and who's Macho Man?
I think we'll be Hulk. We'll be Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you guys can be Macho. Is it Randy? Is that his name?
Randy Savage?
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
There's definitely more temper tantrums probably in our podcast than yours. So I think that makes perfect
Is that Hulk
sense.
Hogan then?
Yeah.
Right.
Also known as Ted Emmett.
Yeah.
How does the Ultimate Warrior fit into that then? Was he not a mega power?
I don't think he ever was a mega power, but I mean, you want to talk about the fits? That's
the man right there.
Yeah, I don't think he ever was a mega power.
All right, so the Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savages of the podcast world in Red Deer are here. Guys, thanks for being here again. You know what, you're here a lot, but just talk a bit about the podcast. I think you guys, as of recording this right now, like 63 episodes in just over a year. So pretty incredible, a lot more than us.
Yeah, well, we do. I remember, Teddy, when we first started our podcast, you are probably around this time of year, you were like, I give you until September before you're releasing every 2 weeks.
I did say that, yeah.
And here we are, still haven't met your expectations.
We've missed just 1 week, and that was due to appendicitis.
Oh, yeah.
On
Did we miss a full week,
I
though?
think we missed one. I think there was just one episode that didn't get released.
I did notice
because of that appendix. I know, and the world shut down. The emails flooded in.
Yeah.
It was just constant social media messages.
Where the hell did you guys go?
They didn't let you record in the hospital?
We tried.
Yeah.
Ryan didn't want us to do that.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, his appendix was bursting.
Oh, it was his.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of your
We're like, we need you. You're our producer.
Yeah.
And doctors like, you're only allowed one person in here at a time.
Yeah.
There were three. It was a mess. Yeah.
Wow, and we missed like 2.5 months and no one said a thing. So I guess that's what's a way less like popular wrestler, because that's probably who we are in that case.
Coco Beware.
Yeah, I've never heard of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, that'll be us, I guess. How do you guys do it every week? Like we were doing it once every 2 or 3 weeks for quite a while there, and that was pretty daunting.
How many have we done this week?
We did three this week.
3 this week?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, summer vacations are popping up. Pete's going to go on some sort of exodus for the next 3 weeks.
Oh, where are you going?
This is it. This is my swan song before I take off on holiday. So
Yeah.
Oh,
you guys
wow.
are getting
Terrible swan song.
This is the last thing you'll ever do in Red Deer, Alberta.
We got a little road trip to Southern California for a couple of weeks. Just to find the most expensive gas on the planet, I think is what we're trying to do because we're driving. So I hear it's around $8 a gallon.
My sister came in from BC this past week and was like, "Oh my God, it's so cheap here, $1.90."
Yeah.
And then my cousin came in from Ontario, and I guess it's ridiculous out in Ontario right now. So they're like the two highest parts in Canada. Okay, yeah, I'm sure West Coast USA, it's going to be outrageous. So maybe just buy a Tesla or buy a
Yeah.
I don't think you can find
Get a Prius while you're down there.
Yeah. You can't find electric vehicles anymore.
Can't you find like what's a cheap version of a Tesla right now? Is that out yet?
Is there one?
Like of the Tesla, like fully electric and almost autonomous?
A driving robot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe that pickup. Have you seen that the Rivian or something like that?
Rivian or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
That looks way better than the Cybertruck.
Now, I was recently told that we are very far away from being able, like, if how many houses are on your street?
40?
40. Okay, so if half of you had electric vehicles and the power needed to power them in your garages, your block would be screwed. I could see that. Yeah, what I've been told is the infrastructure is not there yet for all of us to start hopping on the electric train. So
yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm hearing opportunity.
You can pick up another Ram truck.
There we go. You heard it here first, and that's all the time we have, guys. So thanks for coming talking about your podcast. No, Peter, actually, I'm going to have a bit of an easy couple weeks too, because my new boss is on holidays for a few weeks, so I'll probably mail it in and have a bit of a staycation.
So
that guy's
the radio
asshole.
isn't on during these next few weeks?
Well, he doesn't listen anymore.
He also used to be my boss, and he will be up very early.
Would I ever send messages while I was gone, though?
But you'll be up at 5 a.m. California time to listen to their 6 a.m. show. Is that how it works?
Yeah. There may
luck,
be the
Teddy.
odd. Yeah, you definitely sleep with one eye open. So I will definitely be.
So for those of you who didn't get it, Peter is actually Ted's new boss.
I just found that out.
Yeah, I know. I could tell.
After.
I could tell Kevin didn't know, and I was like wondering.
I can
what
now see
questions
the
he was gonna
sympathy.
ask.
I can like honestly, just in the eyes now, I can just see a much more sympathetic glance coming my
bold.
way.
Yeah.
It's bold for you to hang out with him in this context before your probation is over.
I know. I was thinking about that because we've been trying to do this interview. Like Pat, you and I have been talking about this for a year, and that's how good we are at following up on stuff. And I thought coming back in summer, would be a good time because you guys are rolling so hard, and Bose has so many shows. It seems like
It's crazy.
every second day right now, Bose is having a show, and you guys are at all those shows too. So that's got to be obviously for the nature of your podcast and just your passion for music. Has to be a great time right now for you guys.
Yeah, and honestly, like even through the pandemic when the shows weren't happening, again, not all of, but those, bands were kind of sitting around and waiting for things to get going back on the road again. So, everybody had tons of time to talk. So it's actually been great even pre getting things up and running again.
Yeah, new music still came out in the last 2 years. So we had lots of guests that wanted to talk about that stuff. And yeah, it's been great.
Do you guys think you would have started this podcast if it weren't for the pandemic?
Yes.
For sure. This was in the works prior to.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a loose idea for a while, and mostly just because Bose is such an incredible ecosystem for not just touring bands, but bands that deserve a lot more exposure.
Yeah,
that aren't getting it in traditional media platforms in some of the cases. So it was definitely something that we wanted to do. But I guess it didn't. Yeah, we started a year and a half ago, so it was halfway through the pandemic, right?
Yeah, and then I think a lot of it came from the fact too that Patrick and I were working for a radio station that was in a certain format that was supporting new music and playing new music, and then the powers that be switched that up and went to a full-on gold-based library, and we still are very passionate about supporting new music and wanting to support those artists. So we thought, all right, well, nobody's doing it. Podcasts.
Yeah,
right?
No one's doing
Only a million.
There's no music podcasts out there.
No one's doing a podcast in Red Deer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think yours definitely, the idea started before ours, and ours was a night out on Walsh's birthday where we had too many beers and decided we'll do it. So
we decided we sounded fantastic. We had so many good ideas. People have to hear us.
How many night outs include we should do a podcast, people, and that never happens. You guys did it.
Yeah,
that's true.
And to be fair, Teddy talked about it for probably 4 or 5
years.
Of those. No, just of those nights out at the pub or whatever. He'd bring it up, and then it was like the 5th one where we were like, okay. He kind of just said, "I'm going to sit you down, and I'm just going to press record and just try and talk."
Yeah, we had a trial run, and I've never listened back to the tapes, but I've heard
them. I don't delete anything. I deleted.
They
it
were.
It was
like that night was so much fun though, just because we were just experimenting on how to do it.
And did any of you guys have like obviously Ted had some radio background at that time, but nobody else had any like public speaking experience?
I had public speaking through.
Yeah, well, Walsh is like an accountant who is a public speaker, which is very different from having like
I'm not cool.
MC.
That's what he said.
Well, not even that, but yeah, no, these guys have been doing this for almost 2 years. I still don't think they have any experience, like especially Lund. He does not learn anytime he's here. But for you guys, obviously, I'm not even going to let him have a rebuttal on that one. For you two guys, right? Again, having the radio background and stuff, there's so many people who want to do the podcast, but being on radio still too, right? Was that a little different? You find like, I haven't done a podcast yet since starting again on the radio. So I don't know. Is it different juggling back and forth kind of between the two mediums? Because they're very similar and very different too at the same time.
Well, like we had talked about a little earlier as well, we're used to doing, on the radio, it's always about moving forward and getting to the next whatever. So it's all short. And with those interviews that we would do on the radio, they were fine. But I mean, by the time you talked to an artist about their new album or new single,
the reason they're in town,
the tour that they're on, that was pretty much all the time you had. So you really never got to dig in and get to know these people.
Or if you did, it was never broadcast.
Right.
Yeah. You'd have to chop it down.
Hour-long conversations with musicians in the last few years and through Pete's long career. But most of it never makes it to tape.
Never makes it to air. So yeah, this was a great way to just again get to know these artists a little bit more as people, and again introduce that to the listening audience, who will hopefully get a bigger appreciation for their art.
That's what I've noticed in my short experience doing the interviews, is that like when they come here and we shoot the shit ahead of time, we don't really want to talk about too much because we want to save that for the actual interview, because we do have a half hour, 45 minutes to ask the questions we want to ask that you wouldn't have in a 5-minute radio interview. So, because I think Teddy's a number of times said, "Oh, stop talking, save it for the podcast," because we want it to be like fresh and realistic and not like rehearsed.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing I've learned in the year and a half we've been doing this podcast, Ted.
Yeah, and the other thing you learned is don't do another podcast with Ted. It's a little more easy.
So we're up to 2 things I've learned so far.
Well, now that you're back in the radio game, though, you're just going to be gaining even more experience that you lost over the last 7 years?
Almost 7 years.
Yeah, crazy, man.
How much did the podcast help in your decision to hire Ted?
So if you want a radio job, start a podcast first.
I have to think a lot.
Teddy started deleting every episode of Oh Dear.
Well, he gave me no choice. That's all I got out of him was, hey, here's what I've done in this podcast. And I'm okay. What else have you done? No, honestly, to be fair to you, like, you guys have done a great job. And, we've all kind of said it kind of behind the scenes in radio as well. It's like, those guys are doing a lot of things that radio does.
100%.
A lot of you guys have been great at supporting the community and getting out and doing community things, interacting with audience. And that's exactly what radio does and does really well. Sometimes we forget that that's what we're there to do.
I think you guys should have applied too, though. Because when Pete told me Teddy applied, I was like, are you fucking crazy? Have you listened to the guy before?
Yeah, that's what, now I'm like even tonight, got to make sure, like, not going to swear, like, going to try to keep it, because when you can finally flip that switch and it doesn't even become a thought on live radio.
That is, like, honestly, that is, one of the things that was taught in radio school, and I went a long, long time ago, was when these things are around, like, you don't swear, you watch your mouth. And now it is so different because we're the same on our podcast.
Yeah.
It's all bets are off. So now it's trying to remember that the podcast at this studio is a little different from the mic at this studio is different from the radio studio. And
it just means that Teddy's going to have more work bleeping it out after the fact, right?
We added a 7-second delay. We've never had to do that before. But
Smart.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
So have you struggled on air since you returned? It's been 3-4 weeks now.
I mean, that's probably a question for Peter or anyone
I can handle that.
Who listens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I think it's been great. Like, because it's 7 years away.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like riding a bike for the most part.
You cry a lot. You yell at your dad. Don't let go. No, it is. It's been great.
That was a weird bit.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to
my radio.
my co-host
I was just going to say, is Matt playing the role of daddy?
Yeah,
is that what we just discovered? Is that what goes on?
Really,
before?
but it's like Matt is holding on to me, right? Matt's been in radio in Central Alberta for I don't know how long, right? So it really is. It's a fun flip of the script too, because I get to go in and be Ryan Lund. Right?
It's pretty sweet, guys.
And I just sit there and like, how can I throw him off? How can I say something stupid? What can I do? So yeah, no, for me, it's been a good transition, and haven't done the podcast really since I started. So hopefully I'm better at this part of it, but probably not.
Do you remember the first time I met you?
I'm trying to think. I maybe. Did I sell you a textbook, or was that someone else at school? Pat and I went to school together.
Yeah. Craigslist.
Back in the misconnections days. No, I was a year behind Ted at SAIT, and on one of our first days in school, Big Dick, one of the professors there, brought in a couple.
His radio.
I know who they're talking about. So I'm like, no, but I
brought
can see
in a
how
couple
that would
of
be a
you
little
second years to just like tell us how great the program is and there's no abuse or harassment or anything, blah blah blah. And you were introducing yourself, and you stopped yourself mid introduction to tell Marcello Castronovo, a fellow classmate of mine, that he had beautiful eyes.
He did. What am I supposed to do? Just pretend that this guy didn't have the most piercing blue eyes I've ever seen?
Italian eyes, yeah. You weren't wrong, but it was a memorable introduction for sure.
And you knew everything you needed to know about me, right? Too. So it was a good introduction.
It was a good introduction.
What was that guy doing in radio class or whatever? He had great eyes,
just to see who could keep their attention or not, and I failed.
Well, there was a TV side as well, right? So maybe did he eventually go that direction?
No.
Stayed
he
with the
stayed in radio.
All right,
until the end of school, anyways. But yeah.
Well, let's get him on the podcast. We'll catch up with him.
He's in a killer band now.
Oh, so he might be on your podcast.
Very possible.
Yeah, that didn't look. Sorry, Marcello, that didn't sound very promising. But we'll maybe have you on ours, Mr. Blue Eyes himself. But back to your podcaster, because that's kind of why we're here to shed some more light on it. A nice crossover episode. Hopefully, we can send like a dozen of our 15 fans your way.
Welcome.
Yeah,
but you guys better come back.
Yeah. There's enough. You have enough room in your ears for two podcasts.
You can subscribe to multiple YouTube accounts, right? Yeah. Like you can't. It's not just one.
We'll send them
I've been doing it wrong this last year.
You're probably not even subscribed to our YouTube account.
No.
Yeah.
Playboy.
Yeah.
It's the infamous Playboy YouTube channel.
Who the hell still subscribes to Playboy?
Someone who likes to read.
Yeah. Articles and jokes and
the jokes.
So, but for your guys' podcast too, I know a lot of it focuses a lot on Canadian bands, which is awesome, and really the more like the smaller the indie scene, which I think is really cool. You've had some big names. I know Rain Maida was one, and the Dead South. But how important is that for you guys too to just give a voice to those bands who are just as talented as any other band really around Canada?
Yeah, huge. It's and it's something that we're trying to do as well when the drive still existed in Red Deer. Dedicate some time every couple nights a week to bands that weren't getting radio play anywhere else in the country, really, for the most part. So it's big, and those bands are still coming through town, right? So why wouldn't we try to expose them a little bit?
Yeah,
that's fair.
It's again going back to what I said with Patrick and I, just both being passionate about sharing new music. Like a lot of reason you get into radio, at least on our end of things, is music, right? You want to share the music that you love and introduce it to people, and this is a really great platform to do that and help those younger artists and up and comers.
Can I ask what your guys' process is when you decide to have a band on your show? Do they approach you, or do you approach them, or like it may be different now than from when it started a year ago?
All kinds of different ways. For the most part, obviously, it started with us reaching out.
Yeah, and like it sounds crappy, but like a lot of the times when you're being reached out to, it's not necessarily someone you would have reached out to.
Right.
Although time passes and that can change.
Sometimes those work out too.
Honestly, one of our best episodes I think that we've had was a band that had reached out. And we didn't know too much about, and just kind of like,
nothing about them.
I'm not sure about these guys, and then they kind of persisted a little bit, and we had them on, and like easily one of the best episodes.
Yeah, shout out to Mountainhead.
Mountainhead. Check out the Mountainhead episode, and you'll see why.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Really cool dudes.
Well, and that's what I really like about the podcast, because obviously it's a music-based one. If you're not huge into music or that music scene, I think you should still listen, because it's like anything when you're interviewing, right? It's more of like, it's a human interest podcast, because you guys go way beyond the music. You get to know the people and learn some really cool stuff. And you will, a couple bands will catch your ear and you start listening to them, and you could have a new favorite band out of it too. So that's what I really like about it. Like I've learned a lot about a lot of different bands that I honestly had never really heard of.
Well, I appreciate that. And I do think, and I know a lot of people disagree on this, but I appreciate knowing more about the artist. Sometimes that will convince me to consume their art that I otherwise wouldn't have, made the time for. And it goes the opposite way as well. But I do think that that's important. I think that people do want to know, to a certain degree, the kind of people that they're spending money on or spending time in their heads with, right?
Yeah. And it's a get to know you kind of thing, right? Yeah. The more you kind of feel comfortable and even friends with that artist, the more you're going to want to support them and listen and check it out. So that's kind of...
And we never want an interview to be an obligation either. There's so many instances where that's the case, where they are obligated to sit down and spend time with you. They're on the circuit. This is what management told them they have to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't create natural, fun conversation at all.
I can imagine in radio where you have this artist that's obligated to show up to the radio station and do the 5 or 10 minute interview, and it does not want to be there, right? Because he's done it with 10 other radio stations, and you can just tell he's not into it. Like, so on your podcast, it makes sense where you don't want to make it an obligation, where it's kind of like a thing they're looking forward to.
Yeah.
So I know we've been lucky, but I feel like the people we've interviewed, almost every time it feels like they wanted to be there.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, if there's an obligation to be on the Oh Dear podcast, you need to get a new job because that's stupid.
You made some questionable life decisions. Who do you owe?
Yeah. But you do get the artists who basically have it written on their hand. Yeah, it's really great to be in blank.
Yeah,
you always put on a great show here.
Which, you know what, I will say honestly, in 25 years of doing this, it hasn't happened often.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I've had an artist where I'm like, okay, I can tell they just don't want to be here.
Well, if they come in with that attitude, then they're going to come off as, having
honestly, we've had a couple of artists that would come into the station and it would be that 5-minute interview and they stuck around for like an hour afterwards. We've definitely had a couple of artists that would went through and talked to everybody in the building.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where you really get to know them and actually learn their secrets and backstories. So,
well, it's not always about the music. Like, we did 3 interviews this week to prep for vacation time, and I mean, every single interview went off in some direction that had nothing to do with music too. Like, we were doing fast food hacks with Keegan Powell the other day, right? Like,
we talked probably 15-20 minutes on F1 with Sister Ray this week.
Yeah,
right?
wild stuff.
You fit in well on this podcast because we spent the first 10 minutes talking about Teslas and cars and didn't even get to your podcast. So, but that's the best thing about it too, right? And have you found too, I know for us, the group interviews, having more than one of us do it versus the one-on-ones, kind of for both sides, I think just make for way better conversation too. Because you could have, just Patrick doing an interview or just Peter doing an interview. And usually too, you have more than one artist on there too. Mm-hmm. So obviously too, that's way more fun.
But the thing that's great about that too is that you guys each bring something a little different to the table. So, and I think the same with Patrick and I, we come from this, we're both music fans,
right?
But come from kind of different sides of the music fan.
Do our research differently.
100%. So we could bring something a little bit different.
We do share our research. We just have a Google Doc that we use for every interview, and so we're able to look at our notes and stuff. But Pete usually listens to a couple previous podcast interviews. I usually just stick to written articles. But yeah, we do have a different dynamic, and it works well. And we've done a pretty good job over the last year and a half figuring out who wants to talk when. We've got little subtle signals, I think, right?
Yeah.
The only thing we're missing is that in between questions, we're not taking shots at this guy.
Right.
During the interview.
You can.
Go
we
ahead.
should just randomly
that's
shots at
this
Ted.
is our
guy
signal.
named Ted.
Yeah. So that's cool about real estate, but let's talk about why Teddy's an idiot.
That's a long interview. Yeah, that would not be a 5-minute interview.
And it's fun. Like, that works.
Oh yeah,
really well.
Yeah, when
radio,
Ted's
right?
watching, yes, it works.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to really get very animated.
We find if all 4 of us try to talk at the same time, eventually it just works out.
You guys don't do like footsies or anything?
We do, but that's different.
Just for fun.
Yeah, it's just for fun.
Shoes off.
That's pre-game, post-game?
That's all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I like what you're saying about this Google Doc. We should have thought of that years ago.
Oh my God.
What do you tell me more about Google Docs?
Whatever Ted tells us is what we do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like you guys read it anyway. I read it. I used to give them a breakdown and they didn't read it, so we just kind of meet before and roll with it. But one thing I want to do is, because again, it's overdue, we've been off for a couple, is give Bose a lot of love, because obviously, Brennan, Ryan, and Riley kind of put this studio together on the strength of you guys wanting to do your podcast, The Road, the Stage. And I know, everyone in this room has a strong relationship with Brennan and everyone at Bose. So how much does that mean to you guys too? Just the community support there, and with Brennan being such a music lover, right? Having him behind it and letting you guys have the freedom to come and do this.
Yeah, I mean, that does go back to a lot of the reasons why we started it as well, right? Because we had felt over the years and just following the evolution of Bose, how much the music community continued to build and grow, and not, again, just focus just on the musician side of that community, which obviously is huge, but the fan side as well. Like, people turn out for shows here and support music here big time. So yeah, that was definitely a huge factor in us.
Yeah, I mean, and Bose is truly like a special place.
How many times have we had a guest on where we haven't said anything about Bose? And
we in the pre-interview contract it's stipulated that they have to, within 5 minutes of the beginning of the recording, you must say something positive.
You do not get this on your rider. The green room will not be equipped with.
No, every single artist who has spent time in Red Deer and at Bose, or even artists that have yet to come here but know about Bose, are excited because the hospitality is above and beyond, from what we understand, what we hear, any other venue in this entire country.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's crazy. It's a special place.
Again, think of yourself in that situation where you're in a band, you're touring, you've been on the road for 3 weeks already, you're already pretty groggy and out of it, and then you show up to a venue that could give a shit less that you're there, and you've got like this little cubby over there, and you're just treated like it just sucks. They roll in here, and Brennan's got that green room loaded with food trays, beverages. It's all comfortable couch. Again, a venue owner that is excited to have them there and engage and talk. Like for being on the road that long and as much as they are, you want to be, it's nice to have a place where you feel like home.
Yeah, that's going to want to make you come back too.
And it's going to make you want to come back. And then that word also spreads to other bands. And, that's the one thing we've seen a lot of bands come through that typically would probably just hit Edmonton and Calgary because they can, that now definitely detouring.
I've been impressed with the level of the bands that Red Deer gets. So obviously Bose deserves the majority of the credit, it sounds like.
Big part of that. And it's like almost every day there's a concert announcement. And like I can imagine too when you're going touring in bars, right, that you don't often get to go to a place with the atmosphere like Bose and for the green room, like a menu like Bose.
Yeah.
Right? You'll get your typical pub food or whatever, which is good, but Bose is kind of pretty upscale, right? For
Jackie's menu
basically
is
a
nuts.
rock and roll joint.
And food's pretty important. That is a topic that does come up on the show quite regularly with most musicians is, they're all foodies, it seems.
Well, yeah, when you spend however many days of the year being like, am I eating, sorry for the brand name, Teddy, but am I eating A&W or Subway today for the 30th day in a row? Bose's, oh my God, there's a fruit and veggie tray. There's snap peas here. That's I think that's probably pretty exciting.
So peas are that's the tipping point. Like,
it would be for me.
All band there. You heard it. Anyone listening?
Not just peas.
Give a band snap peas. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I was dropping off some prizes at Bose for a golf tournament at like 4 p.m. And we were walking in through the back door to unload them there, and there's that the table or whatever that all the artists.
The green room.
We've got that before, that fancy table.
Yeah, we didn't deserve it, but
I know, but Brennan let us sit there. But the band was sitting there, and my jaw dropped at the amount of food that was on the table.
Crazy.
And and you could tell that these guys were having the best time.
I think that was
it's just like that, those extra little things that they do.
Right? I think that was when Altamira was in town, maybe. Was it a Friday night you were dropping stuff off? Because I remember the auction stuff set up. It was a marvelous spread. Yeah. Altamira on episode something or another.
So let me ask you guys this: if you guys were a touring band, what would be that one thing on your list that would be that for your rider?
No green M&Ms. No, I don't know.
On the rider.
M&Ms? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a pretty simple guy. Yeah. I don't know. These days, sparkling water.
Yeah.
Some Perrier.
Fancy water.
Maybe some Pepsi.
That's how you know you're in your 30s now, right?
Yeah.
I think that's how you know you're in your 30s. You get excited about sparkling water, right? You text all your friends. They have Apple now. Have you had it? It's so good. And you have like a 10-minute conversation. So that's a very
and you actually laugh at the Michael Bublé commercials.
Yes. Yeah.
Snap peas would probably be number one. So
I mean, come on. If you're on the road and you see a delicious, juicy, hydrating snap pea,
and not just
you're not going to be happy.
But there is also like a dish of hummus.
Yeah.
Beside it as well.
Okay. If you had the hummus, and now you're talking my language. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, so Lund, what would be on your rider? Like, what's the one thing?
So obviously a heartburn medication, but then like for food, probably like a churro.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, like we don't have any good churros around here, but I know.
So then why would you want one from around here if there's no good ones?
You want to make them work.
I want to make them
work.
Yeah.
You want to know that they care enough about you.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the trick.
This guy gets it.
Yeah. Like, do you know the story about Van Halen and the brown M&Ms? Why they do that?
No, I don't.
Other than to be dicks, but it's to make sure that they're reading like what's on their list, right? Yeah. And actually attention to detail. So the churro actually would be a good one.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
I'm trying to think. We've gotten into rider chat with a few bands, but I'm trying to think, like, was it the Beaches that said they had there had to be a picture of Tony Danza?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was
the Beaches. They need a picture of Tony Danza.
Oh yeah, that's way better than the churro.
Okay, now I want that.
Yeah, we're all thinking food. And
we've also seen some interesting riders, not like wild and wacky brown M&Ms and pictures of Tony Danza, but not to name names, but there's been a couple things that I've witnessed in the last couple of years where I'm like, that was on your rider and that's what you did with it? All right. Nice waste of everybody's time. But hey, they're paying attention. They got the job done.
Well, I think one last thing to touch on, because you're talking about all this and seeing these bands, is not only do you interview these bands, but whenever they're in town, you go. So it's not just all talk, right? You're not just going on the podcast, pumping up these bands, saying, hey, go see them. You're there too, like every show. I know that must get a little bit exhausting too, because right now, like we said, it's like every second night almost at Bose, but obviously that's something that was in your blood even before the podcast, right? But are you getting a little tired, or you still love it every time?
Well, I think I'm starting to show my age every once in a while with some of these late nights, but definitely when it's gone through the pandemic, I have for sure noticed with, because I think I've been to 20 plus shows since March when things opened up again.
Right.
And I'm definitely, I can definitely feel it after a few days. Now, I mean, I'm not, everybody goes to concerts for different reasons, right? Like whether it's you love the music, you want to go and party, drink your face off, blah, 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 blah. I'm at the point now where like I'm there for the enjoyment of the music. So it's not like I'm going hardcore and crazy partying through all of it. But it does, like it's whatever, later nights, and my ears have already taken a pretty good beating over the years as well. So there is a constant ring that's just there.
Lovely.
No, it's great to have those shows back. I mean, I did appreciate the break when the pandemic hit. I've admitted that before. It was kind of nice. But since things started popping up again in March, I've actually since moved from the county to the city, which has made going to shows a lot easier and more enjoyable. I mean, Riley and I went down to Calgary last week for 2 shows in the matter of like 3 hours. That was pretty wild. Yeah, I'm not slowing down anytime soon.
So is there, with all the shows being announced, is there one show this summer that you've got your eye on, that you've kind of booked that time off to make sure you're going?
Well, I haven't booked any mornings off, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I guess that would be what I was asking.
No, there's a show at Stampede on the 11th that I'm really looking forward to, Chastity and Alexis on Fire. And then we've got a number of shows. We got a couple weeks off here at Bose for July. I think just with Stampede and Westerner Days, it's slowed down a bit, but I don't know. Honestly, it's very hard to keep track sometimes.
Yeah. I one of the big ones I was looking forward to this year was Jack White. I just went and saw him in Vancouver, so that was kind of a big one. But like as far as local shows, like Boy Golden and the Sheepdogs coming up in the fall is going to be
really
huge,
really cool.
And that'll be a fun night. There's a few that aren't public knowledge yet that are pretty exciting that people will definitely circle on their calendars as well. So
we've got Black Pistol Fire coming back
Fire
which is huge.
Wild, like really good. That's another one.
Have you seen them?
I've seen them, right? And
were you out there in a band?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I've seen them. How many times have they been? Twice, right?
Twice.
I might have even been the first time, but I've never heard of them before.
Unreal.
Admittedly, I haven't really listened to their music much after, but it's just the show. Like some bands just have it, right? Like the stage presence, their music really lends itself to live.
Just 2 guys, if you're not familiar with just a drummer and a guitarist, and
it's like Death from Above.
Like Death from Above.
A little bit.
Last Keys,
What do you like? Do you guys listen to music?
I used to be really into music, but life gets in the way. So.
Your own career, music?
No.
Okay.
But honestly, like high school, it was kind of like Blink-182, like kind of pop punk, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
you might be excited for Biff Naked then.
Yeah.
It'd be a good show. I know for me, it's not going to be like a party show, but I'm so excited for Crash Test Dummies to be at Bose. And I think actually that one was announced just before I got the job at the radio station too. But that's one of the ones more like it's kind of like a sit and drink and enjoy the music, because they're not, they got, obviously like their 2 big hits are kind of slower songs, but I bet you like probably such a great live show still. And just the nostalgia factor is huge.
That's something that it was a topic of conversation a couple of weeks ago, but like if you're going to go to a concert, like what's your number one reason for going to the show? Is it
dancing?
No, it may have been dancing in the past, but probably not today. If I'm going away, if it's an overnight trip, I mean it's probably to get fucked up.
Yeah.
If it's in town, if it's a band that I really want to see, then I'm gonna tame it back a bit and really try and take it all in. But if it's just some band that I got invited to, it's the party. Yeah. So
July 15th, Apollo Suns are in town, and it's going to be a real good time. It's a Friday night
I'm
too.
around.
You guys are unfamiliar.
I have to take off Saturday morning.
Like trombone, trumpet.
Oh my God! Yeah, we had like nine of them on this stage in Communal Creative Studios a couple months ago. It was wild shit.
Holy smokes.
So that's another question. How often would you go see a band that maybe you're unfamiliar with?
So I'm not a big concert guy, but if somebody like Ted or somebody that I knew say you gotta check out this band out, they're amazing, for sure I'd go. And then if they're back in town or if they're in Edmonton or Calgary, I'd go again.
That's how you get into some of your favorite bands. I'll never forget back in school. You might have been at this show too at SAIT when Arkells played it. I'd never heard of them, and a friend just said, "You got to come see this band." And now they're honestly close to one of my favorite bands. I see them every time. So that's it too. Like, just go to a show at Bose. It's not outrageous. It's very affordable, which is the other nice thing about shows there, right? And when you're into that indie music scene is awesome because it's affordable. You don't have to pay $200 to see whoever. I'm not going to give free advertisement.
Boys.
Oh, I paid $200 to go see them, and I will
you'd pay a lot more than that.
But really, you get the way more intimate. Like, you get such a good bang for your buck, and you come out of it. I'll go see bands that I don't even like live and enjoy them live because it's just such a different experience. So
I would never. I don't think I could ever just go by myself to a concert and enjoy the music. I'd have to go with at least one friend or a group of people. But if like the Foo Fighters, if they were to come to Edmonton, Calgary, or to Bose, I'd go every time. So
that's probably I'm sure that's on the docket.
Yeah, $1,000 tickets.
Just heard about it.
Yeah.
Hey man, if they keep doing what they're doing there.
No, I agree, man. Like,
keep putting the Tony Danza pictures up.
Yeah, we had Future Islands. Were any of you at the Future Islands show?
Oh.
So this is a band that, has significant notoriety. They have one of the most memorable Letterman late night show performances ever from probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And they played Bose like a month and a half ago.
Wow,
and it was a crazy production. It was an amazing show. Nuts to Butts on there. It was completely sold out.
Nuts to Butts. Can we use that?
I like that.
It was unbelievable.
Nuts to Butts all night. Was it busy in there? No. I'm not allowed back in.
Like the caliber of shows coming through is only going to get better and better, I think.
And I think Lund will back me up on this, though. Brendan, anyone at Bose, if you're listening, we need another Spice Girls tribute band concert because that was one of the most fun nights I've ever had.
To be fair, it was pretty fun. There was like 90% women and
Ted.
And Ted. Well, I was there too. So it was a pretty fun
Were
night.
you a little pop star as a kid or something?
No,
you like a play mic at home. You're singing.
No, it's just
BSB and NSYNC.
It's just I just like if it's a good song. Well,
it's a bop.
If it's a good song, it's a good song. Backstreet Boy. I like the nostalgia factor.
What shirt did he wear on his first day at a new job?
Whoa, what was that?
I want it that way.
Oh, okay. Make your rules very clear on your first day. I like that.
Ted, you didn't even need to wear a shirt.
Yeah, I guess I would have said, no, trust me, I needed to, if I wanted to keep that job, I needed to wear a shirt.
Most of his shift, there's nobody else in the building, but towards the tail end, there's other people in the building to be considered.
Yeah, so where do we go from there? But really, I guess just to wrap up, again, the road, the stage, I think what you guys have done, both locally, but for the Canadian music scene in general, is pretty incredible. So for people, they want to listen, follow, watch the stuff on YouTube, where do they go?
Communal Creative Studios on YouTube. Please subscribe. That's where we host all of our videos for the road, the stage, as well as a ton of other great content from what Ryan and Riley have accomplished here in Central Alberta and our social medias.
All the usual spots.
Yeah. And shout out to you guys. I know that you've run out of local businesses to interview. Keep going. It's just time to bring them back in for repeats, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a couple more, but we really did want to get you guys in because it was an obligation for Bose being a sponsor that we did the cross. No, I think it's just cool. We've shared this space so much, right? And we all know each other in different ways. And I think that's the other thing too. I think in the podcast world, like the local business world is, you need that cross promotion. You got to support each other. Yeah. We're not competing. You know what? We're sharing it. I know you guys work with local businesses as well too. And it's just great to show that love. I think at the end of the day for Bose, who I think both these podcasts would not be going without Bose, without Ryan and Riley too. So yeah, we're happy to have you both here.
Center of the community, and again, that's a recurring theme on the podcast when we talk to musicians as well, is community, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just in the music world. It's what you guys do. It's what we all aspire to do. Is make where we are just a little bit better, a little funnier sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And the feedback you get from the community has just been out of this world. Like, it wasn't anything we expected. I'm sure you guys have probably gotten the same feedback if you've been pumping out this many episodes in this short period of time. So that's the one thing that's really blown me away.
Well, another thing that I think you guys are responsible for, and your other co-host as well, Dustin, and Peter Michaels to an extent, is that the process of Oh Dear from December 2020?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Has directly led to Ted hopping on airwaves in Red Deer. So I'm sure some people are happy about that.
Everyone but Peter, I think.
Some people were really desperate.
These are the people that are responsible.
Should maybe lay off the beers while they're going through audition tapes. But
when do we get our royalty checks for that new job of yours, Ted?
Well, I just paid you for 2021. So I mean, what does that tell you? Yeah. No, and you're bang on with that. And I think we'll talk about it again. Is the power of community support, right? To go on this podcast. I know Dustin's, I don't think his new job came somewhat indirectly from the podcast. I think it helped, but he had that before. But just the people we've met and the opportunities, and same, I'm sure, for
his new job.
The suit, the mascot,
is the
mascot thing.
Being the mascot for the Black Falls Bulldogs. Yeah. No, it really is. So that's why I urge, if you're the stage fan listening to this, sorry, you should probably go back to a good podcast and keep listening to the Road the Stage, but give it a listen. Especially with 62 episodes, like there's so much variety there. There's some really cool ones too with just you two, or just talking to Ryan too about his job. So lots of learning there. Whether you're a music fan or not, highly suggested. So thank you again both for being here.
Thank you.
Peter, maybe listen to a different radio station the next couple of weeks if you want to come back happy.
We're actually going to air check this afterward.
Air check Ted on his own podcast? Yeah.
Maybe Peter, you can air check Lund for his popping peas.
I think that's some decent mic placement there.
Thanks,
right.
Yeah. Peter's been here an hour, and you've already given me more compliments than Ted's ever given me.
Yeah, well, now you got a big head, and you're going to note the techniques.
Yeah, Peter said it was okay.
About having a big head today?
That, like, literally, though, Instagram ads, you get the one. Is your head too big for sunglasses? Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I take it back. Peter, thanks for being here. Patrick, unfollow me on social media.
You guys have to learn an instrument, and we'll reciprocate and have you on our show, but you got to... You got to get a show under.
And then we have to go on tour.
You have to go on tour. Okay. That's the stipulation.
If you make it that far.
What if we did a tour, live shows?
Yeah.
We could do
performing music.
You could talk to Dustin just about his music knowledge, and that would be hilarious. He's done a live performance, though, in Spanish. So he is a performer.
You didn't see
of
the Lion King video? Oh, yeah. It's on our YouTube page.
Okay. Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
It wasn't so much just singing; it was just yelling in Spanish, but it was gold.
Yeah.
I do know you have some recorder.
I do experience. There we go. So listen for us at some point on the Road the Stage. It'll be a hidden episode. You'll know it'll be a slow
582
slow interview week
next year.
The Oh Dear guys. Yeah. So again, thank you. Yeah.
That's what it's called.
What?
Your podcast.
Yeah. You've been on here for half an hour.
Okay, I get it now. All right.
Well, Patrick, sorry you couldn't be here with us tonight.
Oh dear.